What's up, team? Welcome to the Huddle, your weekly playbook where we strategize not only on playing the game, but changing it. From mastering the fundamentals of our craft to, making ourselves stand out in the marketplace. We're here to help you be equipped with everything you need. Let's band together and forge a new legacy in flooring. So, with me today, Mr. Jose Gonzalez, Mr. Daniel Gonzalez decided to run off on vacation this week. So you got him and I and a special guest, Dana Canaday with Stuart and Associates, our flooring company, is here to discuss, today's topic, which is, payroll and this kind of thing with subcontract community in particular. So when you guys have, we're trying to break down the walls of the fear of having employees and running your business correctly, building up your installation prowess with your team, and not always, a lot of sub to another sub and sub to another sub until the quality and money gets diluted. So Dana, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your history, and maybe what you love about the commercial construction world?
Yeah, sure. My name is Dana Canaday, and I have worked in the construction industry for 12 years now. And for the large majority of that, I have worked in accounting. And so I have, in my experience, set up new companies, hired employees, set up employees, paid taxes, and that sort of thing. So I definitely have some experience with today's topic. So I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much for inviting me. And probably my favorite thing about working in construction in general is just that it's very relationship based. A lot of times in construction, you're doing business with people because of a relationship that you have. And relationships are important to me. So I love that part about working in the industry.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, if you're wondering about the hat, it was literally 80 degrees yesterday here in Wichita, and then today it's like 30. So my equilibrium's off. It's probably not cold enough for a hat, but something's messing with my brain and making me cold. So
it's cold enough. It's cold enough.
How's it up in Michigan? Is it crazy up there?
Yesterday was low 40s rain, mid 40s rain. Today is really not that much better. It's a little bit warmer. The rain just makes it feel that much worse.
That's okay, really well, our swing is what threw me for a loop. It went from pretty nice and 80 to cold, overcast, and not
gloomy.
Sure. So today's topic is payroll is easier than you think. So if you guys are out there and you're running your subcontracting crew, your installation business, and we're big proponents here on the Huddle about running your business as a business, charging accordingly, and the best way for you to succeed is to hire talent, develop that talent, and get them better. And if you do want to grow your business, when we first started in the commercial flooring world, we did not sub at all. We have a lot of subs now. We also have hourly employees, installers as well. We're always trying to increase that, but it's up to the marketplace and the people that are out there want to be hourly employee installers. But when I first started, I didn't have any. In fact, we got up to about 15 or 16 hourly employees before I started hiring any subcontractors. So I encourage on this Huddle, on this podcast, we always encourage the subs to find good long-term employees that you can help develop their skill. They're going to be able to do more for you. And there's ways, that you can hire people, and it's not as scary as you think. So the we'll break it down. First, have Dana kind of just walk us through what it's like when you bring on, a new employee installer at the company.
Well, one thing I do know for sure, and I guess I do want to say that I'm not necessarily an expert. I just have some experience in this area. So this is not like legal advice, but you do have to have a company like tax ID number, and you do have to be set up with the state to be able to remit taxes before you can hire someone. Um, and that's really not that complicated. It's fairly simple. And there are free resources that you can go to and numbers that you can call if you are having trouble. But, when you hire someone, there's pretty much like three basic documents that you have to have for every single employee. One is a W-4. This is for the IRS, and it tells what kind of money will be withheld from that employee based on how they're, like, if they're a single person or a married person, and if they have any exemptions or
But essentially,
deductions that they.
the
I'm sorry.
employee self-elects that stuff, right?
Absolutely. And there's information for the employee too, if they're not sure how to fill out the form, of how they should go about doing that. And then in Kansas, it's called a K4. So kind of like the W4, but it's the Kansas version. And then the other form is an I-9. And the I-9 basically is to verify that the person is legally able to work within the United States. And so a lot of times, in my experience, I have never hired anybody that was outside of the country that was like on a work visa or anything like that. So for US citizens, and, they're verifying that information by providing their social security card or their birth certificate or something like this. And those three documents are pretty much the main documents that you have to have on each employee. And you would need those, when you are hiring that person on. And then, from there, basically you enter that information into whatever operating system that you use. And we use Stuart and Associates. We use Structure, but there are, a large variety of products that people can use. If I remember correctly, I think, Jose, you said you guys use QuickBooks. QuickBooks
Yep.
is a very, very, very user-friendly product, and it makes it really easy for
You can go ahead and say it's entry level. You're not going to embarrass me.
It's just QuickBooks is a very friendly product because it's Microsoft based product. So, it's kind of like click and play. I don't know, it's pretty intuitive. I think if you work
and they have an online version that's super simple. I'm going to pause just for a quick second and introduce one of our sponsors. So wanted to, give you guys a chance to discover Floor Cloud and how it can transport your project site conditions and moisture readings right to your fingertips. So increase your profitability and your efficiency with Floor Cloud.
Enables real-time monitoring of your job site conditions via desktop or mobile device. No more manual checking for temperature, humidity, or even dew point. No need for base stations, Wi-Fi, or external power sources. Simply scan the QR code on the front of your sensors and you're up and running with the most accurate and innovative site monitoring system in the flooring industry. Dispatch your crews with confidence and reduce your climate-related installation issues. Floor Cloud, now you know.
Yeah, so that's Floor Cloud. I'm a huge believer in Floor Cloud's technology. It's easy to set up. It's simple interface. Really makes it a no-brainer for flooring contractors. many of our projects are hours away. So getting that information, whether it's your moisture readings or your site conditions, right at my fingertips, 4 hours away in my office, really helps with efficiencies. And so that technology in general right now is moving very fast, and we want to be on the front line, and I encourage you to do so as well. So Floor Cloud's a real game changer. Check them out today, floorcloud.com. So Dana, these like operating systems, as you call them, are really about keeping track of the employees you have and your cells and these kinds of things. So we always encourage you guys to work as a business, and you're going to have a operating system of some sort or a really cool series of spreadsheets, whichever one you prefer. But I would encourage you at, I don't want to quote, or we're not sponsored by QuickBooks or anything, but it is probably the easiest, most affordable system to use is QuickBooks Online.
Yeah, and that system also really helps, guide you how to enter that information, because it knows those forms and what information needs to be entered. So it just makes it very easy for you to be able to set that up. It's not very difficult. And then a lot of times without, job costing or, recording people's hours, like the process of running payroll also can be very simple, especially
Mhm.
QuickBooks. I mean, we also use QuickBooks for one of our companies, and it's basically automated with the exception of changing the number of hours that people work. The system automatically runs the payroll, makes sure it gets paid and pays the taxes. And QuickBooks offers that as a service, and it makes it very easy.
Yeah, so it'll automatically calculate and pay your payroll taxes on your employees for you. So it's not, you get a system like that, and it's really seems pretty efficient way to onboard employees and track their hours, or enter their hours and get them paid easily on a weekly basis or monthly basis or whatever your pay schedule is. One of the I think things to clarify on the I-9 is we've had a lot of clients talk about from Go Carrera side, talk about the government. Now, as we all know, there's a immigration situation, which I will not weigh in on this podcast, but I'll say you have a lot of people that are unable to verify that they're a U.S. citizen or have legal right to work in the United States. That being said, what's going on though is the federal government themselves. We had a request from a customer at Go Carrera to add in the some verification. What do they call it? Proof of
Some requirements, verification
yeah,
requirements, proof of residency.
Yeah, it was past the I-9 that the federal government themselves are asking for. So as you can kind of see, there's somewhat of that issue, but the federal government themselves wants you to verify. So at the end of the day, that I-9, there's other, you don't have to necessarily, you have to have a right to work in the United States and be here in a legal manner. And that's about the end of that requirement. So I wanted to clarify that you don't have to necessarily be a U.S. citizen. You just have to be legal to work in the United States. So what are some of the problems that you've ran into, Jose, with or seen with the way that some subcontractors hire other 1099 guys, or they hire somebody and they treat them like an employee really, but they are paying them like a 1099?
So I can only speak for what I've seen and what we went through, right? And if I told you when we started out 100% classification or classifying our employees properly. or classifying individuals as employees. Let me rephrase that. I would be lying. So you don't know what you don't know, right? And I think the not understanding the ramifications if something were to happen legally, how much trouble you could be in. That's the one thing that we didn't know. And as we started learning more, we started like, oh, okay, so now I can be responsible for all of this. I can be, if someone gets hurt, if something happens, they're not classified, so everything's going to fall right on me, unless I have that paper trail. But they have to have all the right insurance requirements. There's a lot of things into it if you're going to keep someone on as a 1099.
Really, having a 1099 person is as complicated as having an employee. Really, I mean, you got to have a work comp. You got to have insurance policy, a W-9 on them,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to have they either have to have their own work comp insurance, or in some states you can waive that requirement if they're a 1099. But you still have all these documents you need to legally have to operate as a business if you're going to be sending somebody a 1099 at the end of the year. So really, the from a paperwork standpoint anyway, it's not they're not that much. It's not harder to have an employee. I think
Right.
where it gets harder to have an employee is you are responsible for them at that point, at least for their development and them becoming getting the proper training and doing, performing their duty as you would like them to. So
You
Dana,
say that it makes more responsibility, but you also have more control over what that person can do and what it is that you need them to do. You can hold them to a quality standard. You can hold them to a timeline or set certain expectations that you couldn't necessarily for a sub, right?
yeah, that's a great
Well,
point.
that is a very valid point. And that is one of the benefits to being or to having employees versus always banking on using subs is they're there for a job. If someone's coming in as an employee, they're there because they want a career. A sub is there because it's convenient at the time for the most part. Excuse me, guys. I'm still getting over my cold. But
You sound great.
yeah, I know. I bet I do. The problems that we're running into with subs versus employees is just that. And I don't want to get too far off track, right? But they can go do whatever they want. They can quit tomorrow and decide to go turn a wrench. When you have an employee, like Paul had mentioned earlier, is you can actually encourage them to learn more, right? You're in charge of that. And to talk about how easy it is for an employee versus a subcontractor, it actually gets easier with employees because everything is, once they're entered into your system as an employee, everything's pretty much automated. All the changes are made from the office and then they go out instead of the changes being made from the sub. And then you're getting the trickle up effect. That doesn't really benefit you in some scenarios, but
Well, I was going to jump in just real quick. I think one of the
Yeah.
points Dana made that is so valid and important is that the employee, you can require them to be there at a certain time, whereas a sub, you can only give them the schedule and the time, that you need to get done with it. So one quick, another word from a sponsor here is Go Carrera. We're sponsoring the Huddle, and many of you guys know I've talked about Go Carrera quite a bit on this. So we're going to play a quick video about the ease of getting your profile and one of the ways that you can increase your professionalism as a sub. Well, we decided to sponsor our own with the Huddle instead of Go Carrera. So you got to listen to our awesome intro music. So uh, that being said, Go Carrera is really meant to give you the tools and the digital tools in this digital world to help you work in with efficiency. Promote yourself as third party verified, promote your skills, and land more work and increase your professionalism in the industry, and hopefully earn some more money too. So that being said, back on the whole payroll thing, as I was saying, like we when we schedule an employee to go to a job site, they go to the job site at the time that they're scheduled to be there. Um, and well, at least you hope, and most times that's true. But the fact is that you can require them to be there. There's trade-offs
Right?
in all of this, but one probably the biggest thing for me is being able to develop their skill set. Send
Yes.
them to trainings. Norby, one of our top installers here, I speak about a lot of times because he is so talented. We've sent him, I think, to 3 or 4 different certification courses, and that's made him better. And we've earned business from Protect All Business because Norby's certified to do it, and Nora because he's certified to do it, and so that's a key point as well, right? I mean, the fact that you can make it a requirement for them to be on site at a certain time, and
Right.
it gives a better
Elena,
customer experience.
Elena had just touched base on that too, and I think that she was referring to subcontractors as far as requiring trainings and offer advancements. Right? You can do that with your subs. Say, hey, you guys want to go get trained on this? I got a project coming up, but it requires a certified or a qualified individual, and you guys are already good at that. We just need to get this label, and we have done that as a subcontractor. We've been fortunate to meet a lot of the right people at the right time, and we've gone and taken training classes and certifications because we had a job coming up, and that was as a sub, and not as an employee. Um, and that's because we do want to increase our opportunities as well as the companies that we're doing work for. Right?
Yeah.
If they look good, they'll make me look better in the end because I'll get more work from them. And if they see that I'm doing my best to make them look better, then it's going to be hard to kind of break that partnership.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about this yet in the conversation. I don't know if it's part of it, but for the person who's doing the work as an employee, just like you were talking about Norby, that we gave that training to Norby as an investment to him, but also for Norby, it makes him more marketable and gives him a leg up on others because he has that kind of thing. And so, it probably would make, I don't want to speak for Norby, but probably he wants to stay with someone who's going to continue to invest in him and make him feel valued and that they're growing him as an employee. So, from the employee side, it's nice to work for a company that wants to invest in you. And when you are working as a subcontractor, there's really no incentive to invest in someone that way, right? Because
The incentive is investing in yourself. That's the incentive. And it is a very nice compliment to have an employee invest their time and their funds and believe that you're going to succeed in something that they are putting forth the capital for. But it's another thing if you're doing it for yourself. If you're doing it for yourself, there's a lot more reward in doing it for yourself at the end than it is the stress of making sure that you are passing and completing these courses for someone who is forking the bill, right? Like, oh, I don't want to fail. They believe in me. I don't want to fail. But when you go do it for yourself, there's a different mindset when you're doing it
Well,
for yourself. And
I think it's important in both cases, no doubt.
mhm,
There's obviously a huge benefit from the employee standpoint, like you said, Dana, that this company's willing to invest in me. Yeah, I might put a little extra, you know, gumption on the training course and making sure that they are, um, they would definitely want to pass if you sent them. So, but Elena says, it's motivation, and I have to agree with that. The fact is that employees do like you if you can invest in their skill set, and they should make more money as they put that skill set into action, and that's typically how it goes. If you're a sub and you want to go get trained, that's what Go Carrera promotes. Like go, if everybody was an employee, Go Carrera wouldn't be around. But the fact is that we want all installers, whether you're a sub or a employee installer, to desire to get better at your craft. It just is a nice benefit when that's paid for you as an employee versus paying for it yourself as a sub. So staying on this kind of trajectory, when we're talking about hiring, one of the things that we see as flooring companies who hire subs is when you have employees and you have the control of those employees. So when we tell you a job site's open from 7:30 to 3:30, the guys that have employee installers or employee installers that work for them, the sub companies that do that, they're more likely to be on time. That's what we've seen. They're more likely to be there when they're scheduled to be there. When you are always pushing the buck down 1099 down the line, that's where guys don't show up on time. Everybody's an independent, and it's like chaos. And I think that's one of the things that kind of plagues the industry is, the sub hiring a sub. And I can guarantee you, if your GC knows it, if you are working on projects with general contractors, they are not going to like that scenario. So the best thing you can do to do this and listen to some of the information Dana's given about, like, it's not that hard, and you got a lot of paperwork either way you go to be legally classifying that individual as either a 1099 or a W-2 employee.
Yeah, and I think that I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I think that when you hire subs of subs, and sometimes of subs, you really run into the risk of not being able to control the quality on the project, because you don't really know what those people down the line, what their skill level is. And we've already kind of talked about it, but schedules are kind of a huge thing in construction, because you really can lose money on a project if you're not performing your job on time. So if you don't have the ability to manage that schedule because you're hiring subs or subs of subs of subs, it really creates liability, the further up that you go.
And then, just to add on to what you said too, the subs of subs, that's the dilution of of expectations, right? The reason that a company is hiring a sub is because of they already have a level of expectation that's been set by that individual, and now they are subbing that out to another one. Now communication goes haywire, and like Paul had said, the lack of structure, right? As far as start time, end time. And I will say that being an employee before we started Preferred Flooring was probably one of the best things that could happen, because it did instill that structure. Now, granted, when I started in the industry, and Daniel too, is we still had structure with the gentleman that we were working with. However, is like once you're an employee though, and you're like part of a team, everybody is punching that clock at a specific time in the morning, and then and progressing through their day. Like, that schedule is so important, especially when you're working on commercial projects where there's deadlines and they're expecting you at 6:30 a.m., 7 a.m., or if you have a 3-hour window to get some grinding done before they start a surgery, an operation on an eye, or that's where all that comes in. As soon as you falter on that because of a sub or a sub of a sub, that's going to dwindle that work away. There's a level of trust there that is hard to break.
I
Yeah,
think one of the things
go
that
ahead.
I have seen too, and I've seen it happen a number of times, is that Elena made a point that we can hold them to a standard as well as accountable.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've found is that sometimes the sub of a sub or sub of a sub of a sub, those lower people don't always get paid properly. So, you might be able to hold them accountable by withholding funds from them. But I mean, that can also be a risk as, being hired on as a subcontractor that, if you don't have the knowledge of who you're working for, hopefully you get paid for the work that you do,
Yeah. Well, let's be honest about that. A sub of a sub of a sub isn't going to take too kindly to you withholding some funds from them, because chances are they need that to get to the next week.
It's already got diluted so much by the time
Right.
it gets down there.
Yeah. There's the filtration system is in full effect at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
And and that's the whole thing. Like, everyone listening who's afraid of classifying employees and payroll and all that, I was there with you guys. I was horribly afraid by the percentages that I had to invest back into the employees in the company in order to create that structure when we first started. Scared, like, how am I going to do it? The thing is that once we got started and we got into the rhythm, it got easier, and it actually makes you look at your business a lot differently.
And you got requested more. You got more business because you were
Yes.
able to satisfy your client better, and then your margins go
100%.
up. Like, all of that stuff kind of happens. We make our typically, most times, make much better margins on our employee installers, and it's because those projects are they want that service. Those projects want that guy that's going to be there at 6:30. And if you ask a Norby or one of the other guys that are on our crews to be there at 6:30, they're there at 6:30 most times. And so the communication level, all that stuff improves. Let alone the fact that they have ownership of the company. They feel like they're representing the company better for you when they're out in the field. And so our we have some really good subs. So I'm not saying anything bad about our sub community at all. But the hourly employees always have our shirts on. They always have, it's our vans and our things that are the tools are first quality tools out on job sites. So all that stuff leads to efficiency and better branding for your company. And so
there you go. That branding, that's what I was going to add on to that too, is what you were just saying was the exposure that it creates as well. Instead of showing up to a project with a Leonard Skinner shirt on or a Budweiser shirt, they're showing up uniformed, and and they become a familiar logo, a familiar shirt, familiar van in your area.
Yeah.
And that does help bring business as well. There's no shame in advertising for yourself.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. Like, to Dana's point earlier, the subs, you just don't know what subs are going to be subs at the end of the night. Yeah.
I thought that was good.
But you don't know what if a sub is using another sub, you just don't know what, and then they have guys that are helping them that they're treating as 1099 guys too. You don't know what you're getting. Was I think Dana's point earlier. You just don't know what you're getting, where with your employee installers you absolutely do. Or if you're using a good sub who has employee installers, we can feel confident that Humberto or one of the guys are going to put Junior on the job, and so we know Junior, or we know whoever the employee of that guy is. So to me, it's a huge benefit to having employee installers. Certainly like I said, when I first started out, I was a subcontractor for flooring companies, so I was picking up labor contracts from, flooring companies like my company, Stuart and Associates, or like Preferred Flooring, and I'd build relationships with those guys. But my guys that worked for me were all employee installers. They all worked for me by the hour. And there's some other ways to do that across the nation. I know some people, you can still do W-2 and employee installer by piecework. That gets real complicated and takes a little bit more effort, but you can control your costs to an extent. That's not real prevalent around the Midwest here in Kansas, but I've heard some of those structures, on the more on the southeast of the country.
Elena has a question I'm putting up on the screen right now.
Why are we subbing to a sub to a sub to a sub in the first place? Well, that's a great question.
That is. Go ahead, Paul. I'll add to whatever you got because I have my own theory as well.
Well, most of the time I think it's because the sub that we hire has a guy that's working for him, and instead of bringing him on as a W-2, he pays him cash or pays him by check, and then sends him a 1099 at the end of the year. I think it would happen a lot less if the IRS is successful, and this is not fear mongering, this is just a fact. Early last year, they hired another 80-some thousand agents to go after this 1099 situation is one of their goals. And I think if you're treating an individual as a 1099 sub and you're doing it the right way, it's no harder to have a W-2. But there's easier ways to shortcut and make it simpler to just pay somebody a check each week and then send them a 1099 at the end of the year. I don't think any of it's being done probably correctly. And the reason it's being done, in my opinion, in the first place is just out of fear and ease. And that's one of the reasons we're having this podcast, is to try to kind of break down some of those fear, those scary walls, and let you know that if you do both the right way, one's not in my opinion, any more complicated.
Yeah, and I was going to try to add on to it, but you started out exactly where I was going to go with it. So, and you're right. It's the fear that we had when we were starting was, are we going to be able to afford it? That was the fear. Are we going to be able to afford it? And we didn't start out. When I started out, we started out with QuickBooks, right? Like just the cheap, probably bootleg version. Before we went to QuickBooks Online. But when we went to classify our employees as employees, we went through, I don't know if I should say their name or not, but we went through an employee management company who did the classification and everything for us to make it easier. And then when we started looking Daniel started saying, why are we paying them this much money to do this? All I got to do is go click, click, click. Now they understand it. And we ended up parting ways and taking care of it because we're smaller, though. Very few people, don't have a lot of a paper trail. We didn't have benefit packages at that point. Like, it was still bare bones. But that's...
Well, you bring up a good point. Get a accountant. Like, you can get smaller accounting firms. They're all over. We started off with a really small accounting firm that I used to just go every week. I'd drop off a packet of stuff, and they just take care of it for me.
That's old school. Now we just email it. Nowadays we just email it, guys.
Now you can email it. I probably should have not done that because I just
facsimile
dated myself. Yeah, I used to send faxes and courier by Pony Express. No, but having an accountant on your team also is not near as scary or as expensive. And when you do that, you also kind of shortchange your tax year preparation stuff, because if they have access to your QuickBooks, then they're kind of always up to date about what you're doing, and they can ask questions and have you get them stuff interterm to stay up to date and make your tax processing portion of your business more effective. The other question it looks like is, shouldn't we not have control over who's on our job, or who is being put on your job? The answer is yeah. I mean, ultimately, you have the authority on who's going to be on your project or not. The problem is that if you hired a sub and you don't know who they're sending because they use other subs or other 1099 people, and you just don't know, you know how it is when you know a company, you get to know their employees, you kind of know who each person is if it's a consistent if they have consistent employment, and that's less likely when that sub is then subbing to another sub or subbing to another sub. So
Yeah.
uh, I think the answer to your question is yeah, you do have control. I mean, we've removed people off of job sites because they were not either, they show up in shorts or something just because they know how to install click LVT. They get sent to a commercial project,
Man.
and they're in shorts and t-shirt and tennis shoes, and we're like, you can't be on this job, you know. But that's a lot of the controls that Dana spoke about, and you touched on as well, Jose, is having control over what they wear and how they present your company, and all that to me is leads to better clients and more profitability and a better company overall. So
I'm going to do something. I'm going to change the word up from having control to having expectations, right? Because I don't want to keep saying that and scare people like, oh, they just want to control me. It's not that. Is that setting a level of expectation and professionalism is what it amounts to. Instead of the control factor, it's structured to help build, and if I build properly, you're going to benefit as well. So let's all go all in on the structure that we're creating.
yeah, I
And
think that the controls thing is spoken of a lot because that's how the IRS identifies whether or not, if they were to come in and audit your company, uh,
yeah,
are you exuding control over those 1099 individuals? If you're exuding controls in the way of what they wear,
mhm.
outside of safety,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
what they wear, if you are trying to control what time they show up to a job site and not just giving them a scope of work, if you are dictating the pricing to them and not allowing them to set their own price on a job, and if you are not allowing them well, there's a lot of other factors, but the other part of control is not allowing them to have control over their profitability, which is dictating, hey, we pay this amount, and they have no way to move that amount. And as one of our sponsors, Go Carrera, does, is allows any subcontractor to then negotiate the price offering. So if a company posts a work order and that work order is um, viewed by a subcontractor, that sub can negotiate the price or negotiate the schedule. Those are important things that remove that control. So that's where control came from. I do like your explanation of saying like it's expectations, and you can expect them to be on the job site at a certain time.
yeah,
You can expect them to do a certain uh, um, level of quality. We can all expect quality, but you can have other expectations surrounding quality on how they perform that work. Meaning, with subs, you're not always allowed to even tell them the exact technique you want them to use. So
yeah.
anyway, that
I,
go ahead, Dana.
I think the only other thing I'd like to point out about, being in control of who we put on our job is that for the company that I work for at Stuart and Associates, we don't have enough employee installers to do all of the work that we have. So
Yeah.
that's one reason. And it also allows to be in markets that we don't have employee installers, or that it would be more complex to have an employee installer, where we can hire a sub, and we are already a subcontractor to help get that job done. So that would be just another reason why, I guess, that you would sub work out.
Yeah. Yeah, you took a unique approach to that. I wasn't sure what the question, Elena's question was surrounding, if that was from us subbing or if that was the subbing again. But
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah, you get workload, and we're trying to have a good. We don't have enough employee installers, as you said, to do all of our work, and then you got work outside the marketplace. So yeah, that all makes sense. All right. Well, we're coming up on 45 minutes. I want to
I'm
give you
choking over
guys
here.
a quick second to maybe any closing statements. I want to thank you, Dana, for joining us today. Really appreciate your insights.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah,
We
it
didn't
was
even get to
awesome.
the part where benefits come into play, right? Like as an employee, you can find benefit packages, and that's that was one thing that when I went from working as a sub to a sub and getting the employee benefit package, that was huge at the time, and well worth the transition. And then I didn't have to worry about tracking anything and paying taxes and all. It was all taken care of. That is a relief. Um, as far as the closing thoughts, I do want to say, like, you're just a small company, and you get a plan on staying labor only, and you do have buddies that you work with, but they get work from you. That's where, and I talked to Dana about this too. That's where the benefit to go Carrera comes in. Right now, all of a sudden, it's just like push of a button, boom, boom, boom. All the documents got to be uploaded. Somebody else is taking care of that for you, and it just expedites the payment process to you, to the subs that are working with you. And man, that is the easy button, you guys.
Yeah,
That is the
yeah.
easy button. I'm not gonna lie. And why people in our area aren't catching on to that yet?
It'll
Really,
come.
I know. Will.
Well, I want to thank everybody. My only closing statement would be something that you said earlier, Jose, is that starting out as an employee really set good precedents for you. We've said this 100 times on this podcast. If we've said it once, is if you're a younger, newer person to the flooring industry, get a job as an employee for a while. It'll help you set those good work habits. It'll help you set good practicing good techniques if you're working with a good company. And I would implore you to start your career out as an employee installer. And then if you gain that business acumen throughout watching this podcast, I know you are, then you can start to set up a company that would be a really good subcontractor to the world. But start out as an employee. That's how I started. That's how I grew my company. That's how Jose and
Same.
Daniel both did preferred flooring, and I think it's a good way to go. So with that, I'm going to sign us off, guys. Thank you so much, Dana. Really appreciate your insights, and Jose, thank you as always, sir. It's a pleasure. So with that, we're going to break the huddle.
Thank you, everyone.